The average American uses 80 to 120 gallons of water a day, which makes water a super boring subject until you don't have it. When you're thirsty, all you can think about is water. So imagine that on a grand scale. So today we're going to talk about some water collection and storage solutions that you can have in your home, in your apartment, in your vehicle, and on your person. And we've got Zach from Cana Provisions to walk us through it all.
Okay, so how vulnerable is the American water supply?
Michigan, where I grew up in Metro Detroit, Michigan, but north of there, Flint. Like everyone knows what happened in Flint, Michigan, as far as their municipal water systems breaking down, lead being in the pipes. Like that wasn't a cyber attack. There was no kinetic action. Nothing got blown up. That was just the infrastructure falling apart. Jackson, Mississippi, they turn on the faucets and the water is coming out brown. You have the East Palestine train collision, everything that happened there with the PVC fire. Like the water in the groundwater, the sources there have been changed for a generation. Talk to the scientists who are dealing with that kind of stuff, and they're saying like what you're getting, the PFAS, the PFOS into the water, and then seeing the repercussions of what that does to our systems over long periods of time is absolutely terrifying. So before you even get into the attack side of things, we're just talking about aging infrastructure. So even if there is attack or no attack, the answer is there will not be an announcement. There will not be any sort of, all of our phones lighting up.
Oh my God, okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone?
Like the water might not come out of the tap purple. It just might come out of the tap looking normal right up until you're sick or your wife is sick or your children are sick. So looking at this as a holistic thing, the probability of this happening is far higher than we want to talk about. Like, let's go back to Texas a couple of years ago. Boil warnings. How many different people across the US have got boil warnings over the past year? Something going through, getting through the municipal water system, no one is coming. Be your own first responder. That's kind of what this goes back to. So congratulations, your phone goes off, it says boil warning right now. Like, what are you going to do? Like, hey, this right here is a really great first step as far as being like, hey, do I have something in place to start catching things passively before we even get to the point of Drew just drank out of your tap and now Drew's puking his guts out. Like, was it the Chinese food from last night or was it that water?
Yeah. So what about the attack side of it?
Anyone in the cyber community here, and I'm not from the cyber community, can tell you that SCADA systems in particular, which are the systems that control a lot of our power, water, and other infrastructure grid, are enormously vulnerable. They have many not only zero-day exploitations, which are backdoors that can be accessed, but a lot of those networks are completely unsecure, meaning someone, like what happened in the early 2000s in New Zealand, with a wireless router and a computer can pull up next to a station, hook into the pumping system and say, hey, I'm just gonna reverse the flow and pump raw sewage directly back to people. And that happened in New Zealand in the early 2000s. With that being said, then go back to these announcements that are coming out. So we're seeing announcements from US Cyber Command, we're seeing announcements from FEMA, we're seeing announcements from other government agencies and other municipalities saying that nation state and non-nation state actors, which means independent hacking groups like Anonymous, but as well as China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, they're saying they're already in the systems, meaning they haven't crossed the line as far as doing anything malicious, but they've made their presence known and aware. So that takes us to another whole level of the discussion of they're already in the system. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't something that someone off over here is saying it. The government agencies, including FEMA, who also has a policy right now saying, be prepared. You and your family should be prepared in the event of emergency. They are telling us that there are nation-state actors who have access to the grid. That should be a major wake-up call and the stimulus or impetus to all of us to say, okay, what am I doing, particularly about my water and then about my power situation, especially if I've got a cow and this fridge here.
Guys, I'm glad you guys get to enjoy content like this every single week for free, and that's because of sponsors like Venture Surplus. Venture Surplus is currently having a 60% off sale through the 23rd of July, 2024. So if you guys are looking at finding ways to carry water on body in maybe a tactical way or not, even things like Mylar blankets to keep yourself warm in case you get over wet, they have a ton of awesome that was a lot of water. Awesome solutions, so go check out Venture Surplus for 60% off through the end of July this year, 2024. Dude, I'm sweating out all my water. I feel like I'm about to heat cat. Do you have anything to cool me down?
Oh, you look like you're cooking. I got you.
That feels so good. Wait, is this gas?
Speaking of lights, hey, if you need some lights, the best weapon lights in the game, in my opinion, are Mod Light. They're a premium brand, which is awesome because they never go on sale because they're a premium brand. But right now, they're having a massive garage sale if you're watching this around 4th of July weekend. So if you want to save a lot of money on the best weapon lights in the game and handhelds and other things like that, check out Mod Light. Info in description. Oh, yep, my Patriot Supply. Yeah, these bathtub bladders absolutely work. Right now, you can get a ton of awesome stuff from My Patriot Supply. I've been a customer of theirs for over 10 years, so it's really cool that they support our content like this. If you need emergency food, water, and stuff like this, you can hit them up. They have all kinds of good deals. I know we got this one for like 24 bucks with the pump included. Crazy awesome. With everything that's happening in this country and all the signs that we have to start getting prepared, you should absolutely hit them up. They're kind of like a one-stop shop for this kind of equipment, and we personally buy stuff from them all the time. Info to all of this and all these companies are in the description. Let's get back to the video.
One of the pieces of this that we have to fit in, there are two concepts. One, obviously, is going to be the cost. Like, everyone's worried about the cost. The other piece of this is the concept. And the concept is born of what we call step-off water. So that comes directly from Rich Mason. He's the owner-operator of Direct Action Resource Center. Step-off water gives you time and room to maneuver. So when other people are panicking, you've already have that problem solved. Right now, one of the warning signs that everyone should be paying attention to is what's happening to the financial system. The cost of living continues to go up. How far money actually goes continues to decline. So you need more money to do the same thing that you used to be able to do. Right now, based on the financial piece, water coming out of your tap or your spigot is the cheapest it's ever going to be. It means you're not spending the time, effort, energy, or other resources, let alone security, to go and to get it. Hey, I already have it right here. Going back to your Christmas, is it your Christmas gift idea video? Josh, you showed off the jerry can, 5-gallon jerry can, 20-liter jerry can, and you were like, well, why have 5 gallons when I can have 55? That's absolutely the way to look at it. So this 55-gallon drum, I think last I checked, they're about $100 on Amazon, shipped to your door. The best part about that is from the shipping perspective is like, hey, wherever I can get free shipping, like, yeah, I want the free shipping, especially when you're talking freight. There are other places you can find these, but you're going to pay freight because it doesn't come in a standard truck. It's probably going to come on a tractor trailer, semi-truck. So what's beautiful about you want a BPA-free drum, which is a plastic that ends up in the water. You want to make sure that it is, especially if you're feeding your family out of it, I want a new drum. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to go through the process of cleaning it, sterilizing, going through all those different pieces. So getting a drum like this, what I really like about them is they're not heavy. But the weight consideration has to come into this, especially as once this is full at 8 pounds per gallon, nominally this is going to be 440 pounds plus whatever the weight, 10, 15 pounds of the container is. I don't feel good about moving 440 pounds once it's in place.
Not without a tool of some kind.
Yes, without some sort of mechanical assist or a buddy for that matter, muscle power. This ends up being absolutely excellent because I can stow this in a pantry, I can stow this in a kid's closet, I can put it in the coat closet if I need to. The important part though is if I'm going to leave this for long term is to use something like Aquamira, which we happen to sell, but you can get this from multitude of different places. This is chlorine dioxide. What we really like about chlorine dioxide is it's the most powerful disinfectant that we generally see on a general basis. That's not laboratory grade. And putting this, for example, these bottles into this is going to stabilize this whole 55 gallons for up to 5 years.
Wow.
Now, personally, I don't recommend leaving it for 5 years, but the important part about it is Any of these solutions need to be stored out of direct sunlight, and they need to be airtight.
Okay, so what about the chemicals that you're putting in there? Can that, if you overdo it, negatively affect you as well?
So yes is the answer. You absolutely can overdo it. One of the good things about chlorine dioxide is it's very difficult to overdo it. With traditional bleach, that is a much higher likelihood. So when I'm talking about doing stuff at home, my go-to is chlorine dioxide. Across all of our things, what I will always recommend to anyone is household bleach and iodine are never my primary or alternate. They're never my first choices as far as water treatment is concerned. I'm always going to go to something that is specifically formulated not only to be relatively safe for people, but it's going to have a higher efficiency or efficacy. So that's what I'll start with this guy from a home perspective. So we're going to go up in cost, but before we come up in the larger volumes, I'm going to pivot across here to modular storage solutions. So the water bricks, the aqua bricks, the API Samson stacker. These ones are really popular because they stack, they're modular. In the event that we need to move them, instead of 440 pounds, they break down into much smaller increments of weight that we have a much easier time moving. So these are great from that perspective. You still need to, if you're going to store them for long term, you still need to take into effect exactly what we said earlier, like I need some sort of stabilizer in them. Now, if your water's coming out of the tap already, you have a certain amount of chlorine content, fluorine content, other traces in there, which is actually what this is designed to do, is to take those trace chemicals out. Point being, for this application, it's going to be okay. One of the things that we do, regardless from an engineering perspective, is sampling, looking back at whatever you're stowing. So like, let's say you've got an entire freezer full of meat here, you're eating out of the meat regularly, right? So I'm sampling that. I'm making sure, hey, the meat hasn't gone bad. Like the same thing when I crack open a food bucket, if I'm going out, I'm going to go do something with Mitch, right? Hey, I'm going to open up out of my existing stores, take some things out. It's inspection and inventory. Did rats get into it? Horrible stories about rats getting into someone's food supplies and just eviscerating them. So the same thing goes for water. Cracking them open every now and then. Hey, and that's where these are nice. If I crack that whole thing open, then I might be introducing something into it, which is where having a spigot on it makes it really nice. Both of these, both the Aqua Brick and the Samson Stacker down here, they feature two of the big things that I talk about, which are they need to be opaque. I don't want UV light to be able to penetrate it, which is a requirement for organisms, bacteria, algae, other things to grow. So I don't ideally want to store these in the garage. I want to store these, or if they're in the garage, they need to be covered with something, which goes that much further from the perspective of, if I'm starting to do these things, I might not want everyone in the world to know that I'm storing up all of these different things. Now, that's not me being malicious, that's me taking my role as provider and protector for my family first, very seriously. So the water bricks are awesome as well, but as you kind of hold that up to the light, you can see these are a little translucent. So from a long-term storage perspective, that's not my go-to, but I show it really specifically because of how easy it is, how modular it is. And if I've got some sort of stabilizing solution in here, I'm still gonna get an enormously long life out of it. Yep. So I'm gonna pivot one step further over here and look at these guys right from Walmart. They're often overlooked because it's so easy. The thing I would suggest about this though is because this isn't a BPA-free plastic, that you can still get some of those plastics in here. So long term, if I'm letting these sit, I'm gonna run them through a quality hollow tube type filter, which is going to be an MSR, a Sawyer, a Life Straw. All of those use the same technology as far as the hollow tube membrane is concerned. We want to get down below 0.2 micron to make sure that we're getting all of the plastics out. So that's kind of breezing up into the modular. You can stack these things to oblivion. They have their place, they have their application. So one of the great things, now Rockwell Water makes both of these two products, and they're more expensive, but with Rockwell Water, if you can see how narrow this is. I want to say it's at 22 inches, which means I can fit it through very narrow doors like closets. It's also very lightweight. So I can get this shoehorn this into a closet somewhere. It's opaque, again. I'm going to stabilize it with the same Aquamira type treatment. And when I fill it, I would very likely use a Camco water filter something to start stripping some of the other stuff out of the water before I put it in here. I'm going to stabilize it, but then I can stack these. So I believe Rockwell makes 2 different variants, or 3 different variants. One, you can stack multiple. So if that's the case, I can put 100 gallons or 120 gallons here. I can get that into a closet. And what's great also is I've got the spigot. So going back to our kids, I just buy a garden hose cap and I put that on there and just tighten it down with a wrench. That's one of the great things about these is it provides you modularity, and that you can buy them all the way up to 500 gallon tanks. They're huge, but like you can shoehorn wedge that into an area. This is one of their newers, which is called this is called the Exodus. Again, same thing here, stackable. There are a bunch of videos on Instagram and YouTube, people floating around working, like hitting these with sledgehammers and stuff. They are very tough, but they're more pricey. So I show these off from I wouldn't say a good, better, best, but depending on what your price range is, depending on what you're trying to do and how you want to accomplish it, like you can buy there's a lot of different selectability in that scale. So I'm going to jump up to this guy, which we've talked about at length. I love IBC totes. I love IBC totes because of the mass volume that they can store. That being said, quick mental math says you're looking at 2,400 to 2,700 pounds. Once this bad Jackson's in place, she ain't going nowhere. So you got obviously a myriad of different connections down here. These can be had all over the US. The beverage industry is required by law only to use these once before they're cycled out. So this is my warning for everyone, is if you find a recycled container, you're using it at your own risk. There are multiple different places that have patented systems as far as cleaning them out. You open this sucker up, I know you guys did, like I came and looked at them with you, right? Like you can smell there's a residual still on there. So the question then is, am I stowing and stabilizing this? Or when I pull it out for use, am I still gonna put it across some sort of filter or bucket system, the carbon, for example, or a gravity bag? When you hear me talk about this, I'm always going to say you need to cross filtration and disinfection or treatment. You never do one or the other. And this does not invalidate anyone's experience backpacking on any trail anywhere. What this comes down to is there are certain things that can still make it through those filters, no matter how good they are. So before I give water to my children, who can't tell me if something's going wrong, before I give water to my wife, that I'm signing up as the protector and provider in this role right here, that's what I'm doing. If that's the case, then I want belt and suspenders. The point here is your water treatment is your responsibility. Take it seriously, especially when people's lives are on the line. So I say that because I love this for that, because I can get these in 275 gallon or 330 gallon sizes. I can definitely stack these based on this cage. The space requirement is really what it comes down to. Even in the garage, we're gonna wanna cover it because this is still permeable. So I wanna keep this airtight. I wanna keep light off of this as long as I possibly can. So you can buy covers at a myriad of different places. You can buy tarps at Harbor Freight, for crying out loud. And you can hold them up, and like you can see the light coming through. If I can hold it up to the light and see the light coming through, these are not the tarps you're looking for.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
So before I fill this guy, the first thing I'm doing is I'm cleaning it.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to use soap, water, like dish soap and water, wash all that out, make sure I get a good rinse on it, leave it uncapped, let it air dry. Then I'm going to make sure all the soap, all the residue is out. Then I'm going to go back to filling with this. So I'm just trying to strip anything extra in the water. So mytapstore.org, if you're not aware of what is in your water, be aware of what's in your water municipality-wise. So there are 86,000 unregistered chemicals in the FDA's inventory. Yeah, look at those looks. Unregistered chemicals. So Europe's actually way better, way harder on in the cosmetics industry, and then FDA. So anything you put in your body, Europe is way harder on as far as the US is concerned. I'm trying to take some of those things out at the front side instead of when I come back through.
Gotcha. So you're just putting that on the end of a water hose.
And I'm just filling that guy right up.
Gotcha.
Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stabilize it with Aquamira, which is chlorine dioxide. I'm trying to make sure positively that I'm not having any problem. There's nothing growing in there long term. So then in my case, instead of stowing it and treating it, I'm stowing my water as rainwater collection. So I'm treating that as dirty water immediately. So I'm going to draw off of that, go through a filter protocol and then a treatment protocol. So I understand the tax that that's going to exert on me. That being said, it's easier for me to store 1,000 gallons or more of dirty water than it is for me to keep up with 1,000 gallons of clean water. If you take this down, if I like, let's walk down to the pond. Let's grab the Home Depot bucket. We're just going to scoop up just the grossest water that we can. And you come back here and you pour this in, it's going to go drip, 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 drip. And like all the membranes are going to completely clog to the nth degree. Like you're done. So where this shines is tap water, clear creek water, stuff like that. What I'm still going to be really cautious of coming through here is microbiology. Because even if I'm getting down to 1 micron, I'm not getting the bacteria, I'm not getting the viruses. And so like, that's the new question that people are talking more and more about. Like, how do I get down below the viruses? How do I get the viruses out of the water? So any of those quality type backpacking filters gravity type filters I just brought up, which are all excellent filters, they only go down to 0.2, unless they specifically say that they are a purifier and they go down below 0.02 micron. There's an order of magnitude smaller. So when I'm using that, and if you tell me like, hey, we're gonna go out to the pasture here, and I'm like, we go down to the creek and I'm watching cows who are upriver of me, like walk across the river, like when you're in Africa, like I know there are cows pooping. Like I'm bathing here and there's a cow pooping up there. I'm like, what am I doing? This is gonna catch like a lot of the big grossies, the cysts and that kind of stuff, but there's gonna be a lot that still makes it through. So that's where I'm going back to something like boiling or something like this guy right here. But you have to read the instructions very carefully. You often have to wait a full 4 hours to make sure that you kill all of those bugs. From an emergency perspective, one of the great things to have is these water bobs, and they come by a bunch of different names. I think you said you can get them.
I got mine at my Patriot Supply, but yeah, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, Amazon, whatever. But like an average bathtub is going to store between 65 and 80 gallons of water. So having a couple of these, if you got a bathtub in the house, you're like, hey, something's coming down the pipe, or hey, we're going to use this bathroom as water storage, and this bathroom is going to be the one that we're actually doing all of our bathing in. Having a couple of these that you can ad hoc fill and then treat with water at a last minute or last ditch basis makes a lot of sense, which is also why, regardless of whatever treatment method you're using, have extra on hand so that, hey, I'm going to have this ad hoc, I'm going to push. Let's say I can only do 60 gallons. I'm going to put 60 gallons in this. Go. Okay, well, now at least I have the ability to stabilize and treat this 60 gallon.
Or if a family or friend comes to you and says, I don't have any system at all, then you have a cheap solution for them without having to transport water between you and them. You're at least offering something else.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yep. 25, 30 bucks. It's hard to beat.
So let's say we are moving from a house to another location. This is where the modularity of the water systems really comes into play. So whether or not you have something like the aqua brick back here or the water brick, these much smaller implements where I can pick them up and move them, as far as not being a 450 pound, 55 gallon drum, this makes it a whole lot easier, especially to get our wives or children involved. Like, hey, carry this, not this 100-pound thing. Like, there are lots of different solutions. People have shown the cargo carriers, the other stuff, the Alice frame carriers, that you can put this on your back, but anyone who's carried them, I'm sure you guys will point out, carrying them for a long period of time over long distances is not enjoyable. So wherever I can use a vehicle for mobility, that's one of those tools that helps. Yeah. So I'm just going to start with these little water cube storage collapsible containers. They come in a myriad of different sizes. They're available all over the place. I really like these for quick transportation, but these are not exactly super puncture proof. Lifesaver jerry can, really like these because they have that hollow tube type membrane that the Sawyer and the MSRs are known for, which is great. Where I'm going to be a lot more protective of this is I'm not going to put pond water into here directly. I want to make sure that I'm really doing a good job of extending the natural life of this filter. Cool thing is it's got a little pump on the top, right? So you pump it up.
We are here to pump you up.
It's a great system. They're more expensive. So that takes us into the military jerry can type style, the 20 and the 10 liter. So a lot of people say, hey Zach, why does it say 5.3 liters on here? Because it's actually 20 liters. And at 5.3 liters, it starts to change your dose rate. So it starts to change the efficacy and how much of whatever your treatment method is that you're putting into it, which is my shameless plug here for the water data card products, because this lets me keep all of the information with them. So they are sized specifically around these, but if you have another 5 or 5 gallon, 20 liter or 10 liter, which, hey, these do the exact same thing. You'll see 5.3 gallons and 2.6, 2.7 gallons on these. That's what I know my treatment goes towards. So maintaining the integrity of our container, talking about what we did in there when you're getting something that's new, particularly when you're picking things like this up and you may be, for example, dunking the container. If this is my dirty water container, if I need to clean it, this gives you the cleaning and sterilization instructions. This gives you your common conversions. It gives you a lot of that data so that you don't have to worry about remembering it. So that being said, what's great about these halves is that, again, weight. This is 48 pounds, plus or minus.
Yeah.
This ends up being 23 pounds, 24 pounds. Like, this is a lot more manageable, especially if we're not rolling in an SUV. If I've got a car, if I've got a small trunk, if I've got a compact or whatever, I can put this in the floorboard a lot easier than I can put that in the floorboard. And that'll be one of the things we cover with the dromedary bags here as well. So part of that, maintaining the integrity of the container, is what you guys will see here that we just launched, which are our tags, which are our dirty and clean water tags for your cans. And by putting those on there, it gives me a raised surface that's visually indicatable. I know someone will point out they're red and green. What if I'm red and green colorblind? Well, they're different shapes for that purpose. And they're raised so that when I'm wearing a glove or I'm under night vision, I can feel those and like, hey, this is my dirty water can, this is my clean water can. And we also release these Band-Aids, right? I know it's not a real Band-Aid, but man, it sure looks like one. This is tamper seal inspired, and it's meant to have all my different locations on here for what I need to put in here. But for me, in particular, dealing with lots of different containers, I'm under stress, I'm under time constraints. I need to be able to remember what I did to the can, when I did it to the can, and if it's been tampered with. So by using this system, I can quickly tell what that is. So I love jerry cans. We typically end up selling the Scepters. The LCIs are also great. Those are the US made ones versus the Canadian ones. Same. They're very similar construction, made out of HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, which means it's not going to leach into the water. So when I'm talking about storing water in heat in particular, I really like these because they don't leach. I know you guys have delved into the H2Go with Mitch in the past. So the H2Go is really valuable when we're stepping down from the large scale into the smaller scale. So for the large scale stuff, I'm going to have to do 20 liters, 20 liters, 20 liters. Like, that starts to get old really quick. So with this, especially in these small modular containers, when I'm treating water for a lot of different containers or a lot of people, but I also want it to be scalable. Like, I carry this one like this personally because I can go down to 1 liter. I can go all the way up to 20 liters. It gives me context for that. And there are other videos that show that. But the point is, especially from a mobility perspective, I love this. The other thing that I'm a huge fan of is the SteriPen. Not everyone loves the SteriPen. The SteriPen has a near and dear place in my heart because it uses UV light. So when I say, or any of these other companies say, never stack your water treatment. So if I'm using Aquatabs, for example, I don't want to use this as well because I'm stacking a chlorine-based implement on a chlorine-based implement. That can be very dangerous. So I carry this personally because when Drew hands me his water bottle and says, hey man, this is good to go, I'm like, cool. And I go like this and I hold it up and I see the floaties and I go, Drew.
It's just backwash.
It's just backwash. That makes it okay. This gives me a backup that I can go to. Now it'll only treat 1 liter at a time and I have to be able to agitate the water as I do it. So you can't get this all the way in, I would say, to the depth necessary on the smallmouth Nalgenes, so we only recommend them for the largemouth Nalgenes, but this is something that I absolutely keep with the Nalgene. So if I'm pulling water out of something like this that may or may not be unknown, I don't know when it was last treated, this becomes a very valuable tool.
Without adding an additional chemical.
Without adding additional chemical.
Interesting.
So these are two things that I carry, like not just from a vehicle perspective, but moving into like a personal gear perspective, whether it is on LBE gear or a plate carrier, but like I don't wear those for a living. Like, do I carry it like a backpack in and out of my car, my vehicle, not my overlanding rig or anything, like when I'm just like Dad Zach, like I'm carrying a backpack. Yeah. So to that effect, that is exactly where the water data decals come from. That's where these are derived directly off the water data cards. And so these are stuck to here because I want the data, but if I'm gonna step out of this thing and I'm gonna go do something else, then I might wanna take the data with me without taking this. So this gives me another copy of that, as well as the instruction and the quick start quick start guide for the H2Go. So if it's been a minute since you've used the H2Go, this gives me all the different troubleshooting techniques and everything that goes with that. Where this all came from was scrub pocket reference cards for doctors, MDs, nurses. Like, hey, I need to go back and look at something before I like really mess this up. Like on medical March stuff, 9 lines. I've heard lots of guys talk about that who aren't calling them in every single day. Like, watch this. It's not that hard. Instead of, hey, what do I need for a 20 liter jerry can? Oh, it says it right here. Exactly what I need in the small aqua tabs and the big aqua tabs. Yeah. So it's just peace of mind. How many of us did it take to lift this, the 80 gallon? No, 21 gallon, 80 liters. How many of us did it take to lift this uncomfortable blob?
2.5.
Yeah, and we took breaks.
It was not enjoyable.
Yeah,
we should have filled it up in the vehicle.
My fingers are still numb.
Yeah. So this is not the best bladder in the world, we learned. The other one that we opened up out of the box didn't work, but this is an example of, in the boating community, a fat sack, like a ballast bag. It's the same concept. Like, I can fill this rapidly. The question is, how am I gonna get the water from the place into the thing? And that might mean taking all of the smaller containers and pouring them into there, but kind of feel like I'm doing two things. The other piece of that is like, hey, this Exodus 35 is great. This is not going to be light. It'll probably be all 4 of us to move that.
35 gallons.
And it's not in a form factor that's like, hey, this is going to be easy to move. That being said, like if we're on a farm in the back of an ATV, moving around in a truck, like I've got a little trailer, like this makes a lot of sense, especially if I can get it close to close proximity-wise to my water source. So that kind of changes the terms of what I'm doing in the equipment that I then need to operate it. So if we get down to the pond and you're like, hey man, the water's really soft, the ground's really soft, I don't want to get stuck because, you know, we're in a little bit of a drought, but you know, you're 15 feet, you're 20 feet away. Okay, what's stopping you from going and just submerging a bucket?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm submerge a bucket. It's just gonna be figure out how I'm gonna fill this or how I'm gonna fill that little nozzle collar there. Like this is thinking through the logistics of it. Like, does this work? It does. It may not be the fastest method, it may not be the cleanest method, but it works. Right. Another one is the drill pump. These are great. Like some HVAC guys at Darcy, giving them credit, gave this idea to me. It's really, really simple. I've got some of our QDs on here, and I screwed it down to a board because when you hit that thing with torque of the drill, it'll wind up on you real quick. What you trade off with this is you trade off heat first and foremost. This thing's gonna get hot real quick. You're also gonna trade off noise. So you'll have to kind of experiment with this as far as like what your barometric pressure and altitude is, because that's gonna change your pumping parameters and how far or close you can get to the water to drive the water up into either one of these things. That being said, you're also burning up batteries very quickly. You're spinning that drill at high RPM under a high load, amperage wise, to pull everything out. So again, this is another way to do it. Could you do it with the siphon, with the hand pump?
Sure could.
Yeah, the siphon, the hand pumps, I mean.
It would be a while, as well as I'm burning a lot of calories, and I'm not, depending on the daytime, I'd have to be considering rationing sweat as well. So yeah, that could be a lot of work.
Right. And we're not talking about the security aspect of this, right? So like what's my time on target? How much time at the water source do I have? Like natural predators hunt at water sources. Why do they hunt at water sources?
This is a valuable resource.
Everyone's got to be there. It's a choke point. So that's where the AR1 comes in. That's where, you know, I know there's been a lot of chagrin over it, but that's what this was designed to do, is to be man portable. It's designed to be easy. It's designed to be fast. It's designed to be quiet. So there isn't a massive inline filtration system on there, but I can hook it up to that Camco filter. I can stretch a pool sock over the end of my intake. So I can put that down at the water 50 feet away and keep this behind cover up on the tree line, and I can drive water with hoses 130 feet vertical or 250 feet longitudinally. So I can have someone push out over there and silently be driving water at 3 gallons a minute over to this.
Quietly too.
Yeah, so that changes my time equation. So there's a trade-off based on the tools you're selecting and the task that you're performing. The good news is that this is really easy right out of the gate. And the answer to that is, what water do you carry with you? Just, you're going somewhere. Like, let's take the tactical out of it. Like, do I have enough water for a day? Like, hey, I really don't want to walk when it's 90+ degrees out. So maybe I wait till the sun goes down and I've got 1.5 gallons of water on me. Like, these are my bottles. Like, this is, I would say EDC stuff. Like, there's nothing cool guy about, I've got 2 water bottles, dude. Like, these are just Dad Zach stuff.
Yeah.
So that's how I start it with people. I generally encourage people, like, start carrying water bottles. Who's got Nalgene's? Like, don't leave the house without a Nalgene. Have something, because at least it's a reusable container. So even with the reusable containers, you see stickers, like, love stickers, right? Like, that's where the decal comes from. It's not a sticker, it's a decal. Like, this is you guys have felt them, they're different. Like, they're made this to make sure that if I at least have the container, even if it's empty, what do I need to do? Especially if I got this water to work with. I'm not gonna be the first person to tell you, this is not the first water I'm gonna choose to work with. But we'll get into a couple of different things, like, hey, that's all I got, then I'm gonna make do with it. So water on your body, on your person, in your vehicle. Everyone should have a special place in their heart for Camelbacks. They're lovely, they really
Classics.
are. What's really nice about these is they're so easy to carry. What's not nice about any bladder in particular is you just need to keep up with the maintenance of that bladder. You can't leave it in the cabinet partially wet for 6 months. You're not gonna be able to use it again. You have to stay after it and keep it clean. And so that's one of the big pieces with it. And other big pieces, especially on these seams, and if you get UV damage on them, a lot of military guys will talk about last thing they saw happen is they got pushed up against their car, or you're in a hallway and you're scraping along it, or like you said, this makes a really nice pillow, and next thing in the morning you wake up, I'm soaking wet. Yeah. The bladders tend to burst over a long period of time, especially if they're not maintained. But if I've got to move more water, moving 3 liters of water, 1 gallon of water like this is a lot more enjoyable than carrying it, right? These used to be available, much more prolific. This is a 5-galloner. Let me tell you, 45 pounds of floppy on your back isn't particularly good, but I'll tell you what, if I've got this big sucker bladder here and I've got to take this with me, like, if I know this is good water, then that's exactly what I want to do. But how much of a mess am I going to make doing it, right? So that's part of it. If I pull this away, just doing this right here, that's my lifeblood. Am I comfortable with wasting that much water? Well, we right now as Americans are. So how does that change when the terms of the conversation change? I mean, that could have been the difference between life or death for a day, for kids. Dromedary bags. So these come directly from Rich Mason at Direct Action Resource Center. Again, these are fantastic. They're Cordura, right? They're heavy duty. They come in multiple different sizes. They're more expensive, but I'll tell you what, man, they make a heck of a difference. Especially because I can break the sizes down, and all of these bladders, you don't have to fill them all the way. But I can move these. These make a much bigger difference than being like, Hey guys, so we gotta move this sucker up there. Who's up?
Yeah.
Not particularly my idea of fun. So if I'm taking my drill pump with me, what does that also mean I gotta take with me?
Drill.
My drill. So just as, if I've got a bag like this, great. I can take some of those things with me, but I now have to start thinking through the logistics. And I can't remember who said it. One of you guys said it in one of your videos, that amateurs talk strategy, but professionals talk logistics. I looked it up. That was General of the Army Omar Bradley. And it resonated with me, especially as a boring water logistics guy. Like, you got to start thinking about what that ends up looking like. So this is, again, where the impetuous for the AR1 comes from, is I've got a small package that's lightweight, that I can harvest power off multiple different things, including e-bikes if I need to, and I can take this right with me. But I kind of need a bag. I kind of need some way to carry that with me. So as we talk about moving away from the vehicle and then moving into these smaller containers, and we start talking about how the terms of the equation, the terms of the situation start changing.
When you start moving down to smaller containers, like built for the individual, for an individual use, how does that change what you're carrying in terms of purification or filtration and all that stuff?
Perfect segue. So that is a great, not just segue, but question, as I'm looking at tools that I'm carrying with me. So these are Silcock keys. I want to carry these with me. I put them in my pocket beforehand, but if I've got a pouch or like my gear that I'm carrying, these will give me access to municipal water systems. So in a lot of commercial buildings have internal reservoirs or are pulling off their fire main, for example. These combination of these different keys follow all local, regional, state, federal laws, give you access to those things potentially in an emergency. Again, stepping off what I showed earlier, hey, I want my data with me. I want to, like, especially if I'm huffing and puffing, carrying things away, I want to make sure that I have the things that I need to be successful in this environment. So like from that backpack perspective, like what can I, if I'm stepping off with that bag, with that backpack, like what do you have already in there? So like a good gravity system like this makes an enormous difference. But going back to what I showed earlier, and let's grab those decon kits there. So going back to what we talked about earlier, the SteriPen, my H2Go, and a couple of my little packs like this. And these came from doing this. This came from for my family. This came from the experience at Darcy, which is why Darcy's name is on everything, but they were designed for being used specifically in this situation. What would I want? What would I carry? And so, for example, I told you guys that this is exactly why I carry this SteriPen, because I can easily get this in here and just not knowing what has been already done to this water, this costs me nothing. It's fully rechargeable, so if I've got my battery backup or a little solar panel, this gives me a lot of flexibility. The H2Go gives me all that much flexibility as well, because I have all the instructions as far as my dose rate for the SteriPen and for this on here, but I can dose from here. I can dose 10 liters, I can dose 20 liters. I have a lot of flexibility as far as what I'm choosing to go work off of. Now the decon kit and the purification tab kit here, these are meant to be my on body or in pack or in fanny pack. Like, this is meant to be my last ditch. If I'm coming down to the water to make water, I don't want to come down here and rip open 10 of these. If I have to, we can, right? But that's not the primary mission of it. That's why I have these guys. But if I'm coming down here, what I might do is bring my purification tab kit, open this guy up, and I've got a lot more aqua tabs. And I've got the guide card, the quick reference card that goes with it that says, when I'm hot, when I'm sweaty, when I'm frustrated, what should I do? Now, one of the key things that we love about the aqua tabs is they're movement agnostic. When I'm doing this over here, the SteriPen's fast, that's the good news. But if I'm doing any sort of operation with this H2Go, I either want it on a level surface, I want to make sure it's generating bleach, that I'm not getting it in my clothing, not getting it in my eyes. With the aqua tabs, I drop them in, I seal it, I shake it, I stow it, I wait. I walk with it. It's that simple. So the AquaTabs are kind of foolproof when it comes down to the treatment. That being said, the AquaTabs should not be the only thing that you are doing. You should be going through some sort of pre-filtration or filtration step before you get down to it. At the end of the day, you can use this as your absolute fail-safe. You're gonna have to double your dose up depending on your temperature and your wait time, but I want to reduce my risk as far as I possibly can, which is going to mean straining it, using some sort of mechanical filtration, using the SteriPen pre-filter adapter, or using the moist towelette. So you have a lot of different options as far as how to do that. The question is, are you configured?
Okay, so we've given you guys a lot of examples to start getting your brain thinking about what this would look like in your own life and what fits with your own needs. But the next step is to not just go out and start buying tons of stuff. This is not a video designed to sell you anything other than the idea that this is an important thing to think about. Really, your next step is to figure out, what do I actually need? Zach has actually created a pretty cool free downloadable document, or rather tool, to help you figure out exactly how much water do I use and how much do I need. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
So this tool that we put together is a document that you can download directly from the Cana website, that you can use as a PDF or as a print-off guide to give you at least a starting point to say, I am planning around X number of adults. Here's the math. I'm now planning around X number of kids. Okay, here's the math. But this goes back to one of our original conversations. So hypothetically, here we end up, and you've got this place locked down, you've got a whole team of people here, and someone comes walking up the road, and it's it's a man and a woman, and they look like they're relatively well off, and he's got good kit on, he's got nods, he's got a nice rifle, and you're like, hey man, are we gonna have to dump this guy? And he comes up, and he's just like, hey, I've got kids with me. We came across a school bus that was abandoned. I have 24 12-year-olds with me. I don't want anything, I don't want food, but do you have a little water? If you're just planning around yourself, how much sense does that make? How long can you pull security on your own?
Only 1 or 2 nights before I start going crazy.
Right, like you need people, we need community. So this is my encouragement to people out there, not just to plan around what your immediate family needs, but plan around flex, what we talked about earlier. Instead of making an enemy, what if I can make someone else or cultivate someone else to pull the same weight along with me? I'm not dividing people, I'm bringing people together. And water is life. It's a community building, it's unifying. If I have that in excess, then that's something that I can really use. The idea here is wake up. If you're not doing something, start doing something. Take a baby step. Take a baby step from this video and do something to set your family up, your community up, those people who are depending on you, set them up for success.
There's no way to do this and look cool at the same time. It just is what it is. Have fun with the memes.